Hey, Julie, how's it going?
It is going well. How about you, Jason?
Yeah, things are going well here too. I'm really glad to be back with you for another episode of the Biz Apps Classroom, and we have another outstanding guest today. It's Lisa Crosbie. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Julie. How you going?
We're
Things
good.
here are going well. We are heads down getting ready for Power Platform Community Conference. How about you?
Pretty much the same. Yes. Exactly that.
So, I often make the mistake of not introducing our guests because I assume that if I know you, everybody knows you. But can you take a moment to introduce yourself, Lisa?
Sure. So my name's Lisa Crosbie. I am based in Australia, as you can probably tell from my accent if you don't know me already. I am probably most known for being a YouTuber, which I still find an extraordinary thing that I say about myself, because that was something that happened during the pandemic. I turned to YouTube as a way to keep myself sane and to do something, and got completely hooked on it. So I do a YouTube channel that helps people sort of understand a lot about what's going on in the platform, breaking down things into tutorials and new feature releases. And then when I'm not doing YouTube, I work for a partner in Australia called Barhead Solutions, mostly doing pre-sales and demonstrating the platform, and again, helping people understand what's what.
Okay, so we're not always good about tooting our own horns. So I'm going to toot for you, Lisa, so to speak. Whenever I need to learn something new quickly, I go to your YouTube channel. And it's how I personally quickly get up to speed without having to read 200 pages of documentation. And so I find your content super easy to consume, and it covers what needs to be covered. And there's always more documentation to go to if you need it. But specifically, when I need to learn something new, I go to your YouTube channel.
Wow. And that means a lot coming from you, Julie. Thank you very much for that.
And you're always there to help the community. We've talked about our Ukrainian cohorts here on our podcast before, and you have recently discovered how easy it is to give us some Ukrainian subtitles on your content so that our Ukrainian students also have access to the most current, up-to-date tips and tricks and information. So that's fabulous.
Yeah, you're doing an extraordinary thing there, supporting that community. And you and I just had this, corridor conversation, didn't we, at a conference in Europe about that and about doing the translation. And I said, I think I've got a pretty easy way to auto-translate. And if someone can just cross-check that it makes sense, then, that's a really good way to make sure that content is even more accessible. So, yeah, thank you for pointing that out to me.
Yeah, that's a great way to support another community that we have the opportunity to help. So, Power Platform Community Conference, a lot of people may just still call it Power Platform Conference. I think that the name kind of got tweaked because people were assuming it was a Microsoft first-party event, but actually it's run by a third-party organization with lots of support from Microsoft. Have you been to all of the Power Platform conferences, Lisa?
I have. This is my third one, and this is I'm still struggling that my folders are called MPPC, because that was the acronym we had in the previous years. So I keep losing it. It's PPCC now, same thing. So yes, I was lucky enough to go to the first one in Orlando 2 years ago, and then last year in Vegas, which was my first time in Vegas. So this will be my second trip to Vegas.
Yes, I remember we walked around some casinos together, had a nice dinner in Las Vegas. That was
We
good.
did. Yeah.
I did not make it to the first Power Platform conference, but glad that I'm going to be at this one again. I'm doing one workshop delivery, and that is all I'm responsible for the entire week.
That's not bad. I've got a workshop, and I'm also doing a session with Daniel Christian, who's another YouTuber in the Copilot Studio space. So we're doing 10 lessons in an hour on Copilot Studio. So, but they're both done. My workshop is right at the front of the conference, and Daniel and I are on the first day. So I'm actually pretty happy to be doing my work up front and then relaxing a bit. Last year, my schedule had me kind of on my toes for a bit longer than that.
Do you already have your top 10 tips for Copilot Studio ready?
Ooh, oh, look, it's planned and in progress.
Okay, very good, very good. So tell me about your workshop that you're doing.
Yeah, I'm doing something that I think is going to be a lot of fun. I wanted to do something different. So the past 2 years, I have done workshops on model-driven power apps, which possibly the thing I'm known for, and I absolutely love doing that. But I wanted to do something different this year. So I'm finding with Copilot that a lot of the customers I talk to here and the questions that come at me on YouTube are largely around just people don't understand that there's more than one Copilot or what you can even do with it. There's a lot of hype, and then you get a blank box in front of you and you put in one thing and you don't really know what to do. So I'm tackling that. We're going to have a whole day of what are all of the different Copilot experiences in business applications. Where would you start? Why would you pick each one? And then what are the skills you need? So we're going to go through everything from prompting skills, which is something I'm really getting into and really enjoying learning and teaching about prompting. That's a massive skill that we all kind of need now, as well as just navigating that world. And it's going to be a mixture of some of it will be hands-on, some of it will be me doing demos. I'm going to get some sort of interactive polling and surveys and things in there to mix it up. So I'm actually really excited about this. It's going to be a really fun day of just exploring kind of everything that's possible. And I want to leave people going away going, okay, I understand the range of things that are available, and here are the things that are going to be valuable to me and the skills I need to use them. And I think everyone will walk away with something different from that because there are a lot of choices. So possibly ambitious, but I think it's going to be a really fun day.
It sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Well, this weekend, I crafted a prompt that made me realize you really have to kind of expect what the answer is going to be to craft the prompt to get the correct response. Is that a fair way of putting it?
I don't know. That's an interesting experience. I've found, I mean, it's very hit or miss if you're not across the skills of it. One of the recent videos I did and some of the recent work I've been doing is around image generation prompting, because every time I went to generate an image, I would just get complete rubbish. And I was like, this is overhyped and ridiculous. And then I kind of got into it a little bit more in learning more of what I could put into a prompt. So there's a lot of elements in there around how you write it and what you ask it to draw from. Certainly with the most exciting thing with the business application stuff is that you're not just necessarily doing a general prompt, you are working with your business data, which means you can ask it to draw on things and then you get completely different results than if you're just asking general questions.
So during the pandemic, you became a prolific YouTuber, and I learned how to make wine. So
This time was better spent there, Julie.
I don't know. So I'm making another batch of wine, and I was asking ChatGPT in this instance. I needed help building out the schedule for making my wine because I've got a quick vacation coming up. I have Power Platform Conference, Scottish Summit, and I've got this travel coming up, and I need to be home to take care of tending to the wine to make, to go from grapes to wine. It takes a few steps. So I was able to craft a prompt, give ChatGPT the dates that I'm gone, the dates that the wine needs me, and said, give me a calendar of when I'm supposed to do stuff. Mm-hmm. And it did. It said, start your wine on this day, and then you can do this and this and this. So it took from the information I gave it, but also it knew about how to make wine and where dates might be negotiable.
Nice. Have you tried doing things with system prompts? So this is something you can do with ChatGPT, which is a custom GPT, but we can do a similar thing in Copilot Studio where you're basically giving it an overarching piece of the closest to explain it, I guess, is like the concept of a persona. So you're educating it in saying, act as a wine making expert. I don't have the language for this, Julie. You probably do because you know what you're talking about. But you can actually sort of prime the thing in an overall way to understand its role, and then you'll find that the responses are even better when you do that. Is that something you've come across or tried?
So we have a concept, we call it 365 AI, that's on our 365 training site, and we've got these training co-pilots that are in certain courses that we offer that give you, it's it's grounded in the persona of someone who's doing this professionally. So I'm a maker who does Power Effects or makes model-driven apps or what have you. And so it's a similar experience, but not that exact experience that you're describing, but close.
Yeah, yeah. And the other prompting skill that's my favorite one of the week is the it's called the flipped interaction pattern. So I think we all go to AI and ask it questions. The other way that you can use it is to say, I would like you to help me brainstorm a topic. I'm going to give you some information and I'd like you to ask me a series of questions until we figure out the answer. And that's actually a really interesting way to use it to, to check your assumptions about something, to challenge you on something, to brainstorm or problem solve. So I'm still playing around with that as an idea, but there's different ways of thinking about how you can use prompting that are more than just fact checking.
Right. Yeah. I asked Copilot to help me plan a few days of travel after Scottish Summit. I'm staying in Scotland a few extra days. I've already picked my hotels. Now what do I do? So it gave me
Just
some
jealous that you're going to Scottish Summit now.
I said that already. It's okay. So, you did workshops last year at Power Platform Community Conference?
Yeah, and the year before actually. I've done the 2 years and sort of evolving my strategy and thinking about what works and how I want to do that based on what I've done in the previous couple of years.
So what changes have you made this year based on what you've learned?
Yeah, so the first year I did a very sort of instructor-led demo. Both the first year and the second year were the same, well, not the same content, but the same topic, which is model-driven power apps, which is very end-to-end, click here, do this, click here, do this. And if you miss a step or get left behind, you're a little bit limited. Like, it's a very sort of solidly constructed, let's build an app together where there are a lot of dependencies along the way. So the first year I did that, I ran it as an instructor-led demo where I basically was very jet lagged and I talked for 8 hours. That was epic. I went and got a very large bottle of Coca-Cola in the middle of the day to keep me going, but that was pretty amazing. Had about 130 people there. And I feel like that worked pretty well, but it can be tricky when you've got a large room like that to keep the pace that's suitable for everyone, because you really do, with any of these conferences and workshops, there's a range of experience coming into the room. You've got complete beginners, which is where I'm pitching it, and people who are a little bit more experienced. But, the feedback on that was really good, and I think I found the level. And then last year I did it a little differently. I actually wrote a complete workshop guide, like a complete sort of lab manual, 140 odd pages, and left that with people and did sort of introductions and then largely let people work through it at their own pace. I actually preferred the first way of doing it now that I've done it both ways. And I think what was missing last year is that I probably did more of the how to and less of the why to. And I think people were more interested in the why to. So that's why I've sort of broken it down into something different this year that's much less about, it's a completely different topic and it lends itself quite well to this, but it's much less about an end-to-end solution in one day, step by step, and more about let's explore lots of different things in lots of different ways. So it's going to be a completely different type of workshop. And I do like to challenge myself and do new things as well.
When it comes to sort of the students' knowledge, how do you see that impacting this year's workshop as opposed to sort of the levels of knowledge that people came into on a model-driven apps focused workshop?
I'm hoping this will be, I'm fully expecting the same mixed bag. I'm fully expecting, and my content, as we said at the start, I very clearly pitch at, I'm here to help you understand on the assumption that you aren't already an expert, and the way that I pitch the workshop is very much like that. I fully expect that I will get those people and more experienced people. I think the range of things I'm covering this year, though, will be such that people can come in and find they might know a third of it, but not the other 2/3. And the person next to them might know a different third of it and not the other 2/3. And the person next to them knows nothing. And the person next to them knows a lot of it, but is just interested in seeing how somebody else puts it together, which I certainly go along for that reason as well. So I think that'll be quite different. Whereas with model-driven apps and that much more structured sort of end-to-end, if you know it, you kind of know it. You can't sort of, I mean, some people will find, oh, I know some of the basics and then I learn some things, but it's a little harder to cater to that mixture, I think, than what I'm doing this year. So I'm expecting the same mix, but I think it's going to be a little more mixed, if you like, with this stuff.
So for the workshop that I'm doing with EY, it's called My First Day of Power Platform. So hopefully our audience will accurately identify as correct folks who really haven't done anything before. And our approach has been, what would we like you to do hands-on? How long should that take? And then let's backfill and figure out how much knowledge do we need to give you to be successful at doing the hands-on we're going to give you next.
Yeah. And look, I think that title is very, very clearly speaking to the expectation.
I hope so.
Mine always says, introduction to or from beginner to pro or whatever. And I think there are people still, I mean, I'm always happy to have people who have some experience in my workshops anyway. I had people last year coming in because they've followed content that I've done and they wanted to come and join it. And I think people get different things out of it. If people make that choice to come along knowing, oh, well, the content might be something I know. I've certainly gone to sessions at conferences where I think, oh, I actually do know this, but I want to hear this person's take on it, or I want to be in the room while they're explaining it and ask some questions. So I think people have different reasons and value that they get out of it, and that's good too. But yeah, my first day of Power Platform, that's definitely beginner.
Well, and it was originally called Help Me, I Have No Idea What I'm Doing. But
that would get a different crowd, though.
Yes, exactly.
Honestly, that could be mine with Copilot. Help me, I can't figure out what's happening with Copilot, but I didn't call it that.
And then for the workshop that I'm working on, we're depending a lot on Copilot Assist for building out pieces and hopefully explaining how to evaluate what Copilot gives you, how to negotiate with Copilot, and so on. So I think that what we're seeing at conferences this year is going to be how many different ways can we incorporate Copilot into our personal and professional worlds.
Yeah. And it's kind of exhausting and overwhelming and exciting, isn't it? Like all of this stuff with AI, I find it, and I'm very deep into it and learning about it. And then there are some moments where it's just, we weren't even talking about this a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and now it's sort of all over the place and there's so much to learn. And it's both, some of it is way more than you expect and some of it's a bit disappointing, and then you come back and it's amazing. And it's a very exciting time, actually, but it can also be a little bit overwhelming. And I'm sure for people who are not in this tech every day the way that we are, I can't imagine the overwhelm, which is sort of also where I'm coming from with trying to help break things down for people.
I will tell you, my 80-year-old father-in-law loves Copilot. He has Copilot on his phone, and he asks Copilot everything.
Wow.
It is adorable to watch.
I want to be like that when I'm 80 with whatever
I know.
it is. Hopefully we're not Copilot. There's something else.
Yeah, hopefully be a different technology in 30 years when it's our turn, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I wonder how attendees are going to come to your workshop in particular, Lisa, because there's so much interest in these themes, and I'm just thinking of are people going to show up with sort of the weight of their organization on their backs? Like, you need to come back to us and now make this work for our organization. Show us what Microsoft's rolling out that the rest of us can start using and finding value from. I wonder if there's going to be more pressure on that this year than perhaps, just not just learning model apps, but more conventional skills-based workshops.
I have actually had people say that to me, even with model-driven apps I remember it a lot the first year in Orlando, less so than last year. And maybe that's because it was the first year that people had a chance to go to a big conference for a long time. But I had a lot of people coming saying, I'm here because my organization needs to figure out the value of the premium licenses, or needs to figure out what to do with Power Platform, and we don't really understand this part of it, and I'm tasked with coming back and people were coming up. I was having corridor conversations for the whole conference with people still coming up and asking, what's the difference between model-driven and Canvas app? Why would I use model-driven apps? So 2 years ago, that was very hot on the conversation of people starting to understand that Dataverse and the value of that, but people were outright saying, I'm here because my organization sent me to find out the answer to this thing. So I fully expect that the same thing is going on with Copilot. Realistically, you're going to need more than one day to have a whole strategy in place. But if I can point people in the right direction of where to start, and now I know what I don't know, then I will be very happy to make that contribution.
Well, I think the conversation is different depending upon, are you coming at it with, I have a Power Platform background and let's bolt on some Copilot stuff? Or are you coming at it from, I'm new to all of this, how does Copilot fit in? There's so many different ways that you need to incorporate Copilot into your tech strategy, whether it's from a maker or a user perspective. And I think that people are still trying to figure out what it means to them.
Yes, yeah. And I think people say Copilot and they mean Copilot for Microsoft 365, which is obviously a very important part of the stack and the piece that sort of had the most love, noise, press, whatever you like to say. But there's so many other Copilot experiences in there as well that people might not have seen. So we'll touch a little bit on Dynamics, but it's not only Dynamics because, how do you use it to build an app? How do you use it to build a flow? Do you build your own Copilot and how do you do that and when do you do that and how do you use it to extend things and all of those decision points that are more than just going into Teams and saying, please summarize my meeting, which I think is what a lot of people have as their starting and finishing point with it so far.
And I think that Copilot, as we integrate Copilot and chats and GPTs and whatnot into our everyday, then we see more reasons to use it in our everyday.
Yeah. And I think
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, there's also a thing of, and I catch myself doing this too, because you have to think differently about things. So you have to sort of, I think we all go to search engines very naturally now and search for stuff, but that wasn't always a thing that we did. And even now you sort of start to go, oh, well, hang on, would an AI help me more than a search engine here? And what are the difference between those things? Or even just thinking about my starting point is something different. And when I'm learning it and when the tech is evolving fast and still quite new, I'm going to get a bad result sometimes. Like that's just how it is, because the tech isn't quite there or because I don't know what I'm doing. So that effort of I need to think differently, try something different, use my time and energy for that. And I won't necessarily get a perfect result because I'm learning and it's new. But that's the evolving thinking. And I think that's really hard to get people into that, as opposed to, I tried it once and it didn't work, so I'm just going to keep doing what I was doing. But any change is difficult. It's not that much different from other types of change.
Well, and I've noticed that from a search engine user perspective, there's two types of people. There's people who search using keywords, and there's people who ask search engines questions. And the people who ask search engines questions do better at the Copilot scenario. Whereas for me, I've always been a keyword searcher. And so it's taken a bit of an effort for me to make that mental shift to, this is a conversation I'm having, not just throwing keywords into something.
Yeah, and also that the AI is, we use it in a search engine type way, but also that it is creative. It is actually generating things, not just finding things. So there's a whole different way of thinking about it than here's a blank box, therefore it's search. The analogy I like the best actually is that the people who are doing the best with it are people who've been managers. So there's this idea of it's your virtual assistant, it's your, enthusiastic intern, however you want to think of that. But if you think about delegating a task and you write a prompt with that in mind, it completely changes how you write the prompt. So instead of just saying, write me a report on such and such, it's like, write me a report for this audience, for this purpose, drawing on these documents and these sources, and it needs to be this long and it needs to be in this format. You wouldn't just go to an assistant and say, write a report without all of that context. So the idea of treating a prompt as as the same way that you would delegate a task. And even some of the ways of setting up the prompt. Hi, this is the task I've got for you today. First, I'm going to give you this piece of information. Do you understand? Oh, yeah, okay. And now you exactly what you said. Now you're having a conversation.
Exactly. And that, I guess, how would you make the request with the end in mind, right? Begin with the end in mind. How do you form that conversation, I suppose?
Yeah, and it's the same as if you were delegating a task to someone. You want the task done and you want it done well. So what information do you need to give that person, or therefore that AI, to help with that? And then to iterate on that, to not just expect, if you had a junior person and you said, please do this job, would you expect that they can do it without coming back and needing to check something or change something? And it's, the analogy falls over a little bit there because it doesn't quite come back to you. But, well, it does actually. It comes back to you with a response. And then you go, oh, well, actually, I meant it more like this, or could you please change it to be more like that? So that idea of sort of refining and iterating becomes a key part of it. So again, I think if you're using it in a way that's just one question, I'm not happy, I'm out, then there's a lot more to it than that in the way that it works. And you're not often likely to get a one shot prompt and done and I've got everything I need from it. It doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, when I'm using Copilot from a maker perspective, I view it as a negotiation.
Yes.
Right. I think that I'm giving it clear instructions, but I'm obviously not giving it clear instructions when it does something that I'm not asking for. So it's a negotiation.
Yeah. I like that analogy. I'm going to use that. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Anytime. So
we're on the record here that came from you, but I'm using it.
Okay. So what are you looking forward to learning about at Power Platform Conference? Sorry, Power Platform Community Conference.
Yeah, I am really looking forward to, I'm hoping we're going to get more on the next big thing in AI is this idea of agents, of it's more than just chat. It's now about kind of handing over a process and that the AI can do the things in the process. So we've seen some sort of early announcements of this from Build and some of the earlier things, and a lot of it was sitting around August preview. I'm feeling like the timing of this in September might mean we actually can roll our sleeves up a bit and get more into that next stage of that. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. Plus, I just love huge showiness of a big Vegas conference. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, I feed on that, the hive, I suppose, and everybody else's excitement. And I always go and listen for the questions.
That's a great tip. Yeah.
I'm a content creator, right? So I want to know if all of these questions are on a certain theme, or I hear questions for a certain role and everybody has questions for that role, then that tells me that there's a gap in available content for that role or that topic or whatnot. And so for me, I listen to the questions more than the presentations.
Yeah, I actually do take notes of questions as well. I'm not even really aware that I'm doing that, but I do that too.
So, yeah, and that's what I'm looking forward to. It's a little bit of a family reunion, right? Because as we all go to these conferences and see people over and over again, we become very close and develop these lifelong friendships and so on. And so I'm looking forward to that, as well as seeing any of the fun new stuff that is available to the general public. Lisa and I are both MVPs, so one of the benefits of the program is often we get early access to some of the cool new features. So being able to have candid conversations that are no longer covered by NDA will be kind of nice to see as well.
Yeah, and honestly, those candid conversations and the corridor conversations, even things that aren't NDA. I remember last year going into, the Power Cat team had a lunch and just chatting with them, like, what are you seeing? What are you doing? What are people excited about? Just those incidental conversations that you would never get on a meeting to discuss, but there's so much value in those chats with people along the way that, I love all that too.
One other thing I was just curious about, I know you've both been working very hard on these workshops and presentations that you mentioned. Are you hearing anything more broadly that's either similar or perhaps other surprises that you think other presenters might have in terms of working out some of this new material, right? I sort of sounds like a comedian, but like, new technology that they're trying to bring into their presentations and incorporate and make sense of and make it entertaining for people. I don't know, other challenges or other, exciting things that you think that presenters broadly or individually are going to be bringing this year to the event?
Ooh, that's a tough one, Jason.
Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag, actually. There are, even just the workshops are a big range of things. Some of them are, I'm unashamedly, hello, let's navigate the new tech and figure it out and learn
You're
it.
kind of
I'm probably at an extreme end of that. I think some of the others are more just like, here is a really core thing that's been in the platform for a long time, and this is a solid way to learn it, which is a bit more like what I was doing last year, and there's immense value in that, and then probably everything in between.
Lisa, thanks so much for joining us. Julie, thanks for sort of leading it from my side while I cough silently into the mic here.
Poor thing.
We'll be seeing you at the event, and hopefully we'll be doing a little more coverage too. I know there's a ton of great content planned for PPCC 2024. Thanks for joining us once again in the Biz Apps Classroom. Thanks also to Lisa Crosbie for being here. If you want to support the podcast and improve your skills in the Dynamics and Power Platform space, we have a special offer for you on an annual plan from 365.training. Check out the link in the show notes. And that's it for this episode. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can reach us by email, julie@365.training or jason@msdynamicsworld.com. We'll see you again soon in the Biz Apps Classroom.